So with that said, big welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us and taking a moment to come to this webinar. We know there are so many online opportunities and learning opportunities for you. And we know that your time is so limited, especially on a Friday. For some of you, it's 10 a.m. and you're just opening, and for some of you, it's later in the day. But we know your time is limited, so thanks for giving us your time to give us the opportunity to share what Evangers is doing to help pets from the inside out. Our goal is to use this session to help you better drive revenue with the products that are in your stores by helping your customers with their health issues. And today you might find that it is a new food to a customer or a modification to an existing diet. So talking today is going to be myself, just a little bit, not really. This is Brett, my twin brother. And then we have Cami and Alltech, Cami from Alltech and Martine from Alltech. And Karen Rhodes will be chiming in as well, who is an Evangers rep in Northern California, but also a certified nutritional consultant. So while we're here, just quickly, before we kick into it, we wanna also thank all of you for what you're doing for your customers. For many of you, we know being a retailer, especially now and last year, well, kind of always might be a bit of a thankless job. So we know you wear a million hats. We know you're constantly trying to adjust your business, especially this year, last year, and you're managing your staff, you're trying to serve customers, deal with problems on a daily basis. So we really just want to take an opportunity to say thank you for everything you do, the services that you've added, your commitment to nutrition, and everything that you do for pet parents and what you're doing for your community. With that said, we are also hosting sponsoring the search for America's Coolest Pet Store with Pets Plus magazine. Trace Menchaca, the owner of Flying M Feed, I believe, is on here. She was named America's Coolest Pet Store in 2018, I believe. And I think that's been awesome for her. So just the fact that you're here and you're showing your commitment to nutrition and understanding the inner workings for our pets is showing that you can be nominated for America's Coolest Pet Store. So we'll have our Evangers reps send out the link for nominations, but we definitely encourage you to enter that because you're already going above and beyond just by being here. And the deadline for that, by the way, is March 15th. So getting back into it, we're obsessed with pet nutrition, and the bigger picture is we're obsessed with helping pets live longer, healthier, and happier lives. This is one of the reasons we invest in Alltech ingredients for our pet foods. And of the thousands of brands that are available to customers, the thousands of brands that are claiming to be healthy or natural, our investment in Alltech is one that separates us from the competition. Evangers has a long history, 85 years now, and a history of innovation. That's really how we got our start and how we continue to keep innovating throughout the years. But through that innovation, we've been using Alltech ingredients for so many years, and that helps our brand stay at the forefront of nutritional excellence. And that's something we might not think about all the time, but nutrients matter, and that's what we're discussing today, and micronutrients matter. We scrutinize every single ingredient and every single thing that goes into our products, and Brett is on the raw material procurement side of things, so he is always scrutinizing that, especially. But everything from our proteins, our produce, all the way down to our micronutrients, which is where we take it one step further with Alltech. So with that said, take it away, Cami and Martine.
Yeah. Well, I would say we're definitely going to open up to discussion and questions at the end of this presentation. But also, if you do have questions, we love questions because we do this for you. At the end of the slide, because the questions may be answered, at the end of the slides. But if they're not, please ask the question, and we can actually address that because other people may have the same questions that you have. So we definitely appreciate the questions. And I guess we're not going to get too technical, but if we want to go that route, if you guys want us to, we will do it.
Wonderful. Yes, just to echo that, I love questions. If I don't know the answer to the question, we can always find someone that knows the answer to the question. So thank you guys for letting me come and visit with you and tell you about some of the really cool Alltech ingredients that are in the Evanger feed. My whole goal here is to help you guys have a good understanding of what those ingredients are, what they do, and to help you sell pet food. So I am going to share my slides and we will start our presentation. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. So like I said, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm the sales manager for Alltech's business, or for Alltech's pet food business in the US. I've been with Alltech about 15 years at this point, so hopefully I'm able to answer most of the questions, but welcome all of those questions. Just the goal here is to help you learn. And really the goal at Alltech is big ideas from small ingredients. Like Chelsea and Brett talked about, these are mostly micronutrients. These are a pretty small part of the diet, but they are a very important part of the diet. And I think they're great selling tools for you guys and a great way to differentiate and a great way to keep our pets healthy, because I think that's ultimately what we are all looking for, is healthier pets, a longer life, and happier customers. So at Alltech, our core focus is supporting those pets with the micronutrients. So we want to improve gut health because immunity starts in the gut. So improve that gut health so they can absorb all those other nutrients, so they can be happy, they can thrive and long, healthy, happy lives. So I'm going to start out with a concept that you may be familiar with, which is immunonutritive compounds. And that's just really supporting the immune system through specific nutrients. The easiest example is we take lycopene for our eye health. So we eat tomatoes and they're healthy for our eyes. So it's a natural way of boosting immunity, improving nutrition, because immunity really does drive our pets' health. So the concept here has been around for a long time in human health. The lycopene example is just one example. We think of vitamin E for skin health. There's lots of examples, but it's really just promoting that good health, even in a preventative health way. I know we're all thinking about COVID and thinking about keeping ourselves healthy and keeping our immunity up. This is just one way, through nutrition, through a holistic way, to build immunity in our animals. And I just want to start out with a little bit about the digestive system. So the background of this photo are little villi, little finger-like projections. So that's the actual small intestine of an animal. Not a dog or cat, don't worry. It's probably a chicken or a pig. So that's the actual small intestine. So the goal here is to have lots of surface area to keep this area healthy, because this is where our nutrients are being absorbed. So lots of surface area, lots of places for nutrients to be absorbed. We're getting everything out of that food that we're feeding. Our immunity is starting here, and we're just building that microbial community. The small intestine, this is home to a pretty wide variety of microbes. We want to make sure that microbiome is balanced, is healthy. We're keeping in the good stuff and we're kicking out the bad stuff. So for us, and for the ingredients that I'm going to go over, a lot of it is really focused on a healthy digestive system and just keeping this part of the animal healthy. And the reason why we're so focused on keeping this healthy is, number one, there's a lot of association between aging and diseases and an unbalanced microbiome and inflammation and oxidation. And inflammation and oxidation is more on a cellular level, but we can prevent some of that. We can slow some of that down through building the right microbiome, through building that digestive health community. So our goal with most of the products I'm going to talk about, and certainly Evanger, which is the first product I'm going to talk about, the whole goal is feeding the right microbial population. So we want to feed those good bacteria, and we want those bad bacteria to be eliminated from there or be pushed out by the good bacteria. So the first product I'm going to talk about is a new product that's in several of the new foods, and I'll put up the new foods at the end of the end of this section, so we can go over those. You can ask questions, but just want to start out with a little bit of information on Invigen and why this is in there, what it does, why you would recommend this. So Invigen was designed to support the microbiome. It's a combination, a proprietary combination of a number of Alltech ingredients, but it's designed to support the microbiome. And right now we're focused on inflammation and senior pets. So our first trial was on senior beagle dogs. Just wanted to look at what the inflammatory process was like, if we could maybe lower that inflammation. But when we think about Invigen, when we feed Invigen, certainly going to be beneficial for all life stages. Just going to be more prone to more inflammation in senior animals. So that was just the first place we started. So I want to share a little bit of data with you on this. This is really exciting to us. So I know this is kind of a confusing slide, a lot of big words. Probably customers aren't particularly asking if the fecal bacterium is up or down with a certain food, but I just want to illustrate to you that when we feed Invigen, we are seeing more healthy gut bacteria. When we feed Invigen, we see less gut bacteria associated with inflammation. So that is a pretty big deal because most diseases and aging are associated with inflammation. And as dogs age, as cats age, as we age, our healthy gut bacteria tends to diminish. So if we can help those senior pets or those pets that maybe have a chronic disease, if we can help build that beneficial gut bacteria, we're just going to help build that immunity and keep them healthy for longer. So we're not going to quiz you on which bacteria are growing, which bacteria are diminishing, but just want to make you aware of some of the really cool research that we're doing. And we are changing that microbiome for the better when we feed Invigen. So we're making those animals healthier. This is the really exciting part of it. And this probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to anyone about why I'm so excited about this. So I'll walk you through it. So this is a graph of C-reactive protein. And C-reactive protein is an easy blood test. We can do it in animals, we can do it in people. And C-reactive protein is a standard measure of inflammation. So you could probably take my C-reactive protein, and I had a couple of glasses of wine last night, I worked out this morning, I probably have a fairly high C-reactive protein. We can do the same thing in dogs. So in our control, in our beagles that were not fed Invigen, C-reactive protein was at a 14.2. When we looked at the dogs who were fed Invigen, and these are also senior dogs, these have got some more inflammation, the C-reactive protein was in the 8 range. This is a huge deal. So just for a little bit of context, normal C-reactive protein that doesn't indicate a lot of inflammation is in the 10 to 12 range. So these dogs were certainly higher. They were in the 14 range. And by feeding Invigen, we were able to lower that marker for inflammation. So this is a really big deal because we can correlate disease, we can correlate aging with inflammation. And it's just really a good illustration of we're balancing that microbiome with the Invigen, we're building that healthy gut bacteria, and we're lowering that marker from inflammation. So our second part of this study will actually be looking at locomotion scores of dogs and cats. So what will the customer actually see? I personally have a German Shepherd who's 13. She's got some hip issues. If I could physically see her limping a little bit less, or I could see her getting up a little bit faster, I think that would be a very cool indicator, a very cool marker that would show me that this is working. And I think that's a great thing for customers to physically see an indication that the product is helping. So just to wrap up on the Invigen, there is a pretty important role of nutrition in preventing diseases, and that microbiome, balancing that microbiome, plays a pretty key role in building that nutrition, building that digestive health and immunity. So these are our Evanger's products with the Invigen. I don't know if Chelsea and Brett or Karen, you want to jump in and say anything on these?
So yeah, these are products that you guys have not seen yet in the market. They are coming very soon. We developed these products with Alltech, specifically for the most common issues that cats see. And so they'll address dietary issues like low phosphorus or urinary tract. You can see here also bland diet is quite or needing a bland diet is quite common for cats. We're seeing actually in the last year a huge, not a huge, actually the number was already quite high, but of overweight pets, I think, but it went up, I think 6% in the last year, but the starting number was around 50%. So weight management for cats and diets for senior and joint health. Karen, I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add to that, but this is a line that's coming soon. It's called the EVX line. It's a restricted diet line addressing very specific issues for cats.
I just wanted to make one comment, please. Does everyone understand that Evanger may not be listed as an ingredient on the ingredient list, but you know it's there because do you see the list of the 4 prebiotics? And that is the complex that Evanger consists of. And you will see those ingredients listed individually on the ingredient labels on the cans. And Cami, I had a question, and this is kind of stupid, but I have to ask. What was the rationale for the Evanger name? Are the NV and G acronyms for something, or where did it come from?
And unfortunately, most of our product names are what our research team comes up with. The gin part of it is kind of a reoccurring theme at Alltech. Unfortunately, the research group did it, and they got it registered before we could stop them. So it is something company-wide that we are actually working on because we are very much a science-focused company, and I think sometimes we forget that this is consumer-facing, and consumers will have questions about why do you have Evanger name? So it's just on our end, it's probably an unfortunate name that our PhD brainiacs thought, well, this makes sense. I'm going to use this.
Right. A retailer who was on your last presentation actually asked me that. So it's kind of interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for jumping in and mentioning that won't be on the list, but those are the 4 prebiotics. Yeah, we get a little wrapped up in the science sometimes and forget that consumers might have questions. So I really appreciate that feedback.
No.
Also, all the yeasts, they're not active yeast. I think we had that question last time that it's the way it's made, and it's not the same kind of yeast that you may think of. It's the benefits of it, but not an active form of yeast.
Yeah, exactly. So none of these are active yeast that have colony forming units or are going to grow like would grow in bread. Or the other one is we think of a yeast infection. That's a Candida yeast. That's a pathogenic yeast. This is actually yeast fractions. So what we do is we grow our Saccharomyces cerevisiae yeast, and then we break it apart. So the yeast extract is kind of the middle of the yeast, the core of the yeast, and the hydrolyzed yeast is actually the yeast cell wall. So it's broken down in a couple different ways, so we can almost like cracking the egg and getting the benefit of what's inside the egg. And then the eggshell is also useful as well. So different parts of the yeast do different things, but it is a specific strain. It's a strain that we grow at our facility in Kentucky, and quality controlled, all that. So it's not a byproduct. It's not something that we're buying on the open market that may have been used in the brewing industry or the baking industry or anything like that might have some quality issues. But yeah, yeast can be a little bit of a scary word. We hear yeast and we might think yeast infection or baking bread or anything like that, but it is a specific type of.
On the note of yeasts, Evanger, like we covered, is made up of these 4 ingredients: yeast extract, hydrolyzed yeast, brewer's dried yeast, and yucca. I say Shittigera extract. I think the correct way to say it is Shittigera or Shittigera. Yep. Anyway, the 4th one.
Just say it fast.
Okay. So 2 of those are commonly found in other cat foods that are in the Evanger's line. But the full 4 ingredients that make up Envision are not in all of the other cat foods. So we will address this later in the presentation. There are certain ingredients that make up Envision that are in other cat foods that you may carry already at your stores. So we'll get into that.
And it's really the levels and the blend, and we might be pulling yeast extract from a different protein level to make this. So it's you couldn't just take the 4 ingredients and blend it together on your own. It's in proprietary levels, and we've done a lot of work to make sure they're at the right level, so we do get the right combination. All right, should we move on?
Yes.
All right, so the next thing I'm going to talk about are cats and urinary health. And I will admit I am a new cat owner, and I am rapidly learning that cats are very specific and can be very picky, and cats have very different needs than dogs. So one of the things that I'm learning, and probably is more than familiar to all of you, is that cats have pretty specific requirements to regulate their urinary pH. And we can regulate that urinary pH through the diet. Cats need to have that pH at a specific level, or as you are all aware, prone to urinary tract infections, prone to bladder stones, prone to all these urinary health problems. So there is fortunately a very easy way to make sure that urinary pH is where it needs to be. And we're doing that through acid balance. So cats are funny, as I'm rapidly learning, and cats love the taste of acid. So high meat diets are naturally going to be acidic and have an acid taste, but this acid balance will acidify the diet even a little bit more. It'll make it very palatable, and it'll get that urinary pH where it needs to be, so the cat's not having any urinary issues, bladder stones, urinary tract, anything like that. And what makes this special, or what this is different, is it's a dry powder. So we don't have some of the concerns at a manufacturing level of using a liquid phosphoric acid. And by using a dry powder, we're actually getting a little bit more benefit. We're lowering that pH a little bit easier. It acidifies, it promotes the water consumption through that just acidy taste. And it's safe to handle for those who are actually manufacturing. So not something that a customer needs to worry about or a store needs to worry about. All pet food is safe and safe to handle. This is just more on a manufacturing level. We want to make sure everyone is safe and the equipment is safe and all that. So typically what's used is a phosphoric acid, which is in a liquid form. So we've compared our acid balance, our dry product, to a liquid phosphoric acid. And we found that feeding acid balance, we do get to that correct urinary pH quicker than with a liquid application. So it's more efficient, it's palatable, the cats like it, they like that acid taste, and we're keeping everyone safe at the same time. So we're really just looking out for that urinary tract health, we're looking out for people's safety. And again, not something that anybody probably on this call needs to worry about as far as safety, or a consumer needs to worry about. It's just more taking care of everyone, because the phosphoric acid is an acid and can be damaging. So we're just making sure that everyone is safe, our equipment is safe, and no accidents on the facility. So these are the two. And Chelsea, I believe there's Invigen. Are there Invigen in a couple of these as well?
Yes, Envision is in both of these EVX restricted diets, which are coming soon.
I say these are obviously it's all purposefully made with purposely grown ingredients from Alltech, but it's very common being a brand, being a manufacturer, and even private label manufacturer. We get a lot of questions from all different kinds of customers. Very common is low phosphorus, and to have something that's just more than just a low phosphorus diet, and to have it with the acid balance, I think it's just everything. It's not a huge part of the ingredient, but it packs a punch and does what we want it to do. So I think these are really great formulas that even some of the very large companies can do, but they don't do, or they should be doing. And that's why I really like these formulas. I think these will be the best selling formulas and best seeked out foods.
So this kind of addresses what Cami has just gone over. The urinary tract will help or may support struvite urinary crystals by breaking down that acid, and the low phosphorus with kidney concerns. So that's also put right on the label, kind of like an easy button. That's what it's for.
Perfect. And I'm excited personally for these to come out. My cat is 10, so I think she's probably in the age where she could benefit from the Evanger and the low phosphorus. I'm just, I'm learning about cats. So Karen, do you have any of your input on this?
I would like to make one comment. Alltech, you guys put in these wonderful, flavorful ingredients because, of course, with cats particularly, they are so dang picky, and you can throw every flavorful thing at them. And even after all that, there may be cats that do not want to eat foods in the Evanger line, especially sick cats. So I just wanted to point out that Alltech also contributes nutrients, other types of nutrients, to some of the other Evanger's products for cats. So if a veterinarian wants us to be feeding a urinary tract diet that will help prevent the formation of struvite stones, I would also present the vet Evanger's beef tips with gravy. That is a 5.5 ounce, another 5.5 ounce canned cat food. And I would even talk about hunk of beef, which is a 12 ounce pot roast in a can, and it's really for dogs, but cats are obligate carnivores, and it's just meat. And red meat, beef especially, will naturally acidify urine and should help with preventing the formation of struvite crystals. The amino acids and some other components in red meat tend to have that effect. So there are other products in the Evanger's line. If the cats will not eat the Evanger, or there's some reason why it's contraindicated by a veterinarian, then we do have some other options as well. You can always talk to your Evanger's representative or call the company or talk to me about it if you do have questions about other Evanger's products. So yeah, I guess that's it. Oh, one more comment. You can see the importance of having a really good relationship with a veterinarian when you have pets. It's just an absolute vital relationship. So that's all I have.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. That's a really good point. I think that's one thing we all need to keep in mind is talk to our vet. They have a lot of knowledge. They do want to help. So thank you for that. So those are kind of the two new ingredients, the Evanger, the acid balance. But I did want to take some time while I have you guys in my sights and do a little bit of a review on some of the other Alltech ingredients. So these are the Bioplex, Cellplex, Lactosac, Actogen, and the brewer's dried yeast are in quite a few of your products, and just want to give you some tools on how to talk to customers about these, maybe a few tips, a few things you didn't know about the products that you can share, you could use as a selling tool, and really just to promote pet health. So we'll go through these and starting with Bioplex trace minerals. So Bioplex are our proteinated trace minerals, and it's listed on the package on the ingredient deck as proteinated iron or proteinated manganese or those type of proteinated trace minerals. So I know that everybody knows that minerals are important. I'm sure a lot of you take your vitamin mineral supplement every morning, but I just want a quick reminder of truly how important minerals are to our diet. It's not the new exciting ingredient that we can talk about. It's just kind of our standard. Yes, we have a mineral pack, but they really do play a huge role in animal health. And I want to make sure we're not overlooking the importance of minerals in the right balance and the right type of minerals. So they really do play a role in everything from enzymes to hormone functions, collagen and growing strong bones in puppies, maintaining both bone health in older animals, and of course the coat condition, how shiny our pets are looking, and the immune function certainly playing a big role there. So just a quick review of the kind of the main minerals that we're generally going to be talking about, what they do in a little bit more detail. And if we do see a deficiency, which is going to be very, very rare in an animal that's being fed a commercial pet food, but certainly can happen if the animal is sick, if the animal is not eating enough, or if they've come from a situation where we don't know what the animal was actually being fed. But just really want to illustrate the importance of some of these, that they do play a pretty big role and easy to overlook, not exciting to talk about with a customer, but these minerals really do play a pretty key role in the animal's overall health. So I mentioned that our bioplexes are proteinates, and sounds like a pretty fancy word, but it's really what that means is we take the mineral and we bind it to either an amino acid or a peptide, some component of a protein. We bind that to the mineral basically to protect it from being broken down. So in the gut, in the digestive system, the whole point is to break down our food into nutrients that can be absorbed by the animal to get to the small intestine. So when we proteinate a mineral, we basically give the mineral little bodyguards, so it doesn't get broken down in the gut. So we want to make sure that the mineral is actually delivered to the absorption site in the small intestine. And again, our little finger-like projections in the bottom left corner, those are our little villi. That's what we're keeping healthy. That's where our nutrients are being absorbed. So that's where we want to make sure that this mineral gets to that spot intact so it can be absorbed. So you might hear other terms for minerals. There's basically two types of minerals, inorganic and organic minerals. And I'm talking about organic from a carbon base, not a OMRI base. So proteinated minerals are sometimes called organic trace minerals or chelated trace minerals. There are several names for them. They might be listed as an amino acid complex, but the proteinated mineral is bound to a part of a protein. It protects it in the gut, doesn't get broke down, and it gets delivered to the site that it needs to be absorbed. So using these bioplexes, and this is compared to an inorganic mineral, like you might see a zinc oxide or manganese sulfate on the label. So those are our inorganic. So our bioplexes, our proteinated trace minerals, are protected. They can get to the site where they're absorbed, and then we get more mineral utilization. So we're basically getting everything out of that mineral that we're paying for. More bang for our buck. The animal is absorbing more, it's using more, and we also get less waste in the environment. I know we typically don't think of our dogs or cats because they're small as putting waste or minerals into the environment, but there's millions of dogs in the US. If we can utilize all that mineral rather than putting it into the environment is just a nice little beneficial part of that for sustainability. So these are the Evanger's products with the proteinated trace minerals. So pretty wide variety here. I think we've covered a lot of them.
Yeah. Also, I would like to add that proteinated minerals, they don't degrade. They last much longer over time. These are all of our Evanger line pet foods, canned, dog, cat, dry, that have the proteinated trace minerals in it. These are all complete and balanced diets. So when you see a lot of those very long ingredient panel with words that are difficult to pronounce, they will say proteinated at the end of it. That is the Alltech proteinated minerals.
Yeah, so just to get a little more specific, like Brett said, this is in most of our complete and balanced foods. The top row there is the hand-packed products, both for dogs and for cats, and the signature series stews. The second row is kind of like the forgotten line, but it's really a powerful line. It's our super premium, formerly known as gold line. And those are 95% meats with spinach, kale, or in the case of duck, it's sweet potato with vitamins, proteinated trace minerals, and a couple other bells and whistles. Then you'll see it in our USDA organic line and some of the original classics, the complete and balanced classic foods. Then both for dogs and cats. Then again, it's in some of our kibble as well. So if you stock the grain-free chicken with pumpkin and sweet potato, or for cats, the meat lovers medley recipe, it will be the proteinated trace minerals will be in there. And again, you're not going to see the 3 words proteinated trace minerals on the ingredient panel, but like Brett and Tammy have said, you'll see them written out as a mineral and then the word proteinate on it.
Yeah, and thanks, Brett, for bringing up the stability as well, because chemically, or it is a stable molecule. So they do degrade less. They will tend to degrade our vitamins less. Because obviously as shelf life continues, sometimes things will break down, but the proteinates, the bioplexes tend to be more stable and we get less degradation and more mineral and better nutrition for our animals.
Tammy, could you also discuss how Alltech tests raw minerals, what kind of testing protocols there are?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a very stringent testing protocol. So I mentioned that proteinates are a mineral bound to a protein source, a peptide or an amino acid. So the process of this, we actually get a raw ingredient, say a zinc oxide, an inorganic, and we bring that in. So when we bring that in, it's tested for dioxins, PCBs, and heavy metals. And when we first started this testing process, it's probably been 10 years now. When we first started testing this, we were actually rejecting 33% of our raw materials. So those that were unacceptable to us were going elsewhere in the market. I'm assuming they were not destroyed. We've gotten that down because we've gone through our suppliers and we've vetted our suppliers, so we don't have that high of a rejection rate anymore because our suppliers are aware that we are testing very, very closely. But the second part is we test our incoming, and then we actually proteinate the minerals. So we make the mineral, we bind that amino acid or peptide to the mineral, and then they're tested again for PCBs, dioxins, heavy metals. To my knowledge, we've never had something in the final product. There's no reason to think that process of proteinating would actually cause a reaction and cause any of those things, but it's just a nice second quality check for us. Nothing goes out the door until that second quality control happens. And it's the industry standard. It's the industry leader. We wrote the book on testing proteinated trace minerals, and very confident, very happy with our quality control system. And touch wood, there could always be an unforeseen issue, but we've had a very stringent testing protocol and no recalls whatsoever, and very happy with our program.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so moving on to another mineral, another essential nutrient, essential mineral is our selenium yeast. And our selenium yeast is called Cellplex. And it will be listed on the bag as selenium yeast. And just want to start the conversation on Cellplex with letting you guys know that this is for dogs only. So every product that comes on the market for animals has to go through a specific amount of research and testing and mandated trials before it's allowed to be used in a pet food. So selenium yeast has been on the market for 20 plus years. Every species that it's used in requires a pretty significant investment into research for safety. In the US, we have not done all the work to establish safety for cats. So therefore, we can't use it in cat diets in the US right now. Every other country in the world can use Cellplex in cat diets. So there is a safety protocol for it. There is an established usage for it. We just have not completed all the work on cat diets to establish that it can be used for AAFCO standards, which it's something that we're working on. Unfortunately, it is a multi-year, very expensive project that we hope to get pushed through in the future.
Cammy,
The selenium yeast.
I would just like to add on to that. The fact that it's not allowed in cat foods, yet it is in every other country, is not an Alltech thing. It's that AFCO hasn't recognized it yet as an ingredient to be used in cat food. So that's the case for all brands of cat food, that you won't see selenium yeast, but the selenium form that's used in cat foods that AFCO allows right now is sodium selenite.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, so jumping in on the nutrient selenium. Selenium is another mineral, and it's a really pretty important mineral to dogs, to cats, to all of us, quite frankly, because selenium is a pretty powerful antioxidant. It may reduce the risk of certain cancers. I know there's some research on the human side on its effect on prostate cancer because of that antioxidant capacity. Alltech is actually doing some human trials with the FDA on Alzheimer's. Again, it could be a potential tool to slow that down because of the powerful antioxidant. So selenium is really a key nutrient for a lot of things, especially if we think about disease and aging, thyroid health. There's just a lot of very important things that selenium as a nutrient does. And so what we want to do is make sure we have selenium in the right form. So we are getting that antioxidant boost. We are getting that protection from diseases. We are maintaining that selenium status of animals and for ourselves, quite frankly. It's very important for us as well. So why Cellplex is different is because it is a selenium yeast. Chelsea mentioned sodium selenite, which is the inorganic form. It's the mineral, the rock form of that. And Cellplex is a selenium yeast that we grow. So we grow the yeast because yeast is our specialty at Alltech, and growing yeast and breaking apart the yeast. We grow the yeast and we starve it of sulfur. So if you look at the periodic table, selenium and sulfur are pretty close, so we can interchange those. So we feed the yeast the selenium, and the selenium is then incorporated into the yeast structure. So it's a natural form of selenium. It's what you would find if you went out and found a grass that collected selenium. So the animal is using the selenium yeast like in the form that nature intended. So it's not a rock. It's not going to interfere with other minerals. It's in the form that nature intended, and it's more bioavailable and absorbable to the animal. And one of the very cool things about selenium yeast is it's actually stored in the tissues. So when we have a stress event, when an animal is sick, when an animal is going through lactation, it can call upon those selenium stores to use. Where sodium selenite is not stored in the tissue, that has to be fed every single day. We don't get the buildup in the tissues. And that's important because it is such a powerful tool, an antioxidant status. It really, at the cellular level, selenium really does play a pretty key role for our animals and for us. So we actually make a human Cellplex selenium supplement. So encourage everyone to check that out if you're concerned about that as at all. Because the form of selenium really does matter. Having it in that selenium yeast in the form that nature intended really does play a pretty key role. It can balance that oxidative stress. Again, most diseases and aging are tied to oxidation and inflammation. So those two things can really play a role in keeping the animals healthy, keeping that immunity up. And Cellplex has a very strong research dossier behind it. Over 400 trials across pretty much every species you can think of, including quite a bit of work in humans. We also have a life sciences division at Alltech, and we're doing work on the human side, and the supplements are going to be available very soon on the market for our own brain health, which I will definitely be taking. So these are our dog foods with the Cellplex inside.
And you will notice that it's all dog food, even though it's approved, the Cellplex for humans.
Cammy,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Chelsea.
I was just going to comment that we see a new product in here, which is high bio, which stands for high biological. which actually, go ahead, Karen, with what you were going to say.
Oh, it's a different topic. The mind form of the selenium supplement, sodium selenite. Cami, you've actually told us before that it's possible to overdose actually on sodium selenite. So selenium yeast is also a much safer ingredient. My understanding is that if you ate too much of it by accident, you might have a little bit of upset tummy or something. Sodium selenite, on the other hand, if you ate too much, it could actually be, kind of curtains. So that's
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So sodium selenite is a pro-oxidant, so opposite of an antioxidant. It is one of I think the only mineral that can only be fed to a specific legal limit. It used to be, if you looked at the bags in the facility, sometimes they'll have a skull and crossbones on them. So you can only feed it to a certain specific level. Until 20 years ago, sodium selenite was the only option. We needed a source of selenium. That was the option, but it's a very controlled and regulated amount that can be used. But Cellplex, we actually had to do safety trials, I think 30 or 40 times the legal limit. And again, that's every species from mice to horses to cattle to pretty much everything. So it is a very, very much a safety factor, and it is a very safe product.
Thank you.
Yep. I would also say, same as in the last presentation we had, where all of these ingredients are purposefully used because they either complements or completes a diet. And so, for instance, in selenium, we need it to live, and it may be void. It's not ubiquitous throughout the country. It's actually only in certain areas where there's enough selenium in the soil that gets into the ingredient that would be used, which can go into pet foods. And so by adding the selenium, we are making sure that we have the required amount of selenium needed for a complete and balanced diet.
Yeah, that's a very good point. For example, I live in an area that is low selenium. I live in Idaho, and our ground is low in selenium. If I buy a half a side of beef from a local farmer, that's probably going to be in low selenium as well, that raw material. So when we're gathering those raw materials, those meats, those proteins to make pet food or to make human food, we don't necessarily know. We may get one batch that's low in selenium, one that's adequate in selenium, but I think just adding that Cellplex in is going to ensure that everyone gets the adequate level and it's a safe level. And it is an essential nutrient that is so important. And it's certainly one that I'm concerned about for my own health, and can't wait for it to be allowed in cats, for AFCO to decide that cats are a priority. So moving on to lactosac. So we talked about with Evanger being a prebiotic, this is our probiotic. So these are the good beneficial bacteria that are going to support our digestive health. So again, we're moving back to the microbiome. We're moving back to keeping that gut healthy, the digestive tract healthy, and that right balance so we can have good immunity and good digestion. So lactosac is kind of a combination of some different bacteria. So the lactobacillus and enterococcus, kind of our star performers that we see in probiotics. So these are all lactic acid producing bacteria. And why that's important is because they're going to compete with the pathogenic bacteria. So there's naturally going to be some pathogenic bacteria just in our animals' digestive system, whether that's a dog going outside and sniffing around in the trash, or eating those cat treats that my dog likes to find. Those dogs are just naturally going to pick up maybe a little bit of pathogenic bacteria. It's not something that's coming from the food, it's coming from life. So they might get a little bit of growth of even a E. coli, a salmonella, very small amounts, but feeding this probiotic is going to compete with those pathogenic bacteria, so they're pushed out. So we're going to keep the right pH, we're going to push out those bad bacteria, and produce a lactic acid, so those bacteria don't colonize in the gut. So all we're doing with this is giving the gut a little bit of a seeding, so it's got that good stuff in there, so it can do its job. It can grow and flourish the beneficial bacteria. And then there's also a yeast culture, a probiotic yeast in there, and that's going to do kind of a different job. So this is going to support the fiber digesting bacteria, and that's important because every food needs a little bit of fiber. Dogs need fiber, so they go to the bathroom. But this is going to help break down that fiber, break down the nutrients, so we get better digestibility and nutrient utilization. So same concept, we're just keeping that digestive health, we're keeping that immunity up, we're getting those beneficial bacteria into the gut where they can do good for our animals. And really what that's going to mean for the animal is immune function and stool consistency. And I'm the one that picks up the poop in our backyard, so I pay very close attention to the stool consistency. And I have 2 big dogs, so I have a big job, and that is a really good indicator for me that my dogs are healthy. And I'm sure your customers are probably looking at the same thing. You know, that's the first thing that we see. Oh, my dog's a little runny, he's a little this, that's a pretty good indicator of a problem. So just balancing that digestive health is good for all of us and puts our mind at ease when we're the ones picking up the poop in the backyard. So here's our foods with the probiotics in them.
Yeah, and you'll see that all of these are dry foods, and the reason is they're not canned foods. It's because it's a biotic. They are living organisms, and so that's why it's put on post-process where we can put it onto the dry food. Unlike the canned food, it's sealed. You cannot put in any kind of living organism into a canned food.
And Cammie, we're laughing with you. I think we all can identify and relate to having, hopefully not having running poops, but having the big jobs, right? And our customers.
Yes.
Even though we're muted.
Yes. Everybody knows my pain.
Yeah. So again, this is going to be in all of our dry formulas, our dry recipes. If you carry them, then the probiotics are already in them. And again, and the high, that should be on the slide. But again, I say this with each slide, but I just want to reiterate, you're not going to read the ingredient panel as the word lactosac, which is Alltech's ingredient, but rather all of these kind of the scientific names that, like Brett said earlier, are just really hard to say. That's how you're going to read the ingredients on the bag itself. And they're all listed as these 5 ingredients that you see here on this slide.
Oh, Karen, I think you're on mute.
Oh, thanks. I have sniffed powdered probiotic supplements before they're put in food, and they just have a really earthy, I can't describe it, really earthy scent. And I think that it really appeals to dogs and cats. So it's interesting, the flavor and scent of the probiotics that are being added to the dry foods actually increase palatability, I think. Also, could you explain how you grow the probiotics really quickly and how they're processed?
Yeah, and I can give you kind of the overview. I'm not the probiotic expert, but they are all grown at Alltech. So we do have our own specific strains. Again, it is a massive quality control program that goes through that, but the strains are grown by Alltech in our facilities. In Lexington, Kentucky is where our main US manufacturing is, but they're grown in the tank. We have our own strain, our own stock, our specific ownership of that. We grow it ourselves, and then the product is actually freeze dried. So it comes to you, or comes to the manufacturer as a powder, and it's essentially just reanimated when it's applied to the kibble.
Cool.
But yeah, our probiotic guy is is pretty amazing and knows more about probiotics than I will. He's probably forgotten more than I will ever know. So it's a pretty cool subject, and we're always working on new strains and new types of probiotics. So hopefully we'll have some more exciting stuff for you shortly.
Cami, if you don't mind, we're getting close to time. So what I'd like to do is open up the floor for questions. And then if there's a little bit of time, we can continue with, I believe there are 1, maybe 2 ingredients left to discuss. But if anybody has questions at this time, I'd love to address them. Or if you don't want to say them, you can put them in the chat in the Zoom as well. And we can read them from there and ask the audience, or ask Cami really. So if anyone has any questions at this point, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
You know what I find very interesting is that in gardening soil, for if you have a garden, they put a lot of these probiotics into the soil because it helps. I mean, I guess just like in your gut, I mean, you're trying to grow something, you know, whether it's good bacteria or I guess some tomatoes, you know, probiotics is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all living, breathing human. I guess the soil isn't human, but growing things, and we need these type of things. So yeah, we actually have a crop science division as well, where we work with soil amendments and kind of a holistic approach to building the soil health, which will build the crops, which will build, you know, nutrition for us and for animals.
That makes sense.
So are there any questions?
Is there a chat?
There is a chat. So we're going to continue. If you have a question, put it in the chat or stay tuned and we'll have more questions at the end as well. Perfect.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
Judy, go ahead, please.
I have a question regarding the canned foods with this line of dry dog food. As we add to it, like, you know, some customers want to add a few spoonfuls to it. Are we increasing the seleniums and the other items that shouldn't be too high?
So are you asking if you're feeding a canned food and then you're or you're feeding a kibble and then you're adding maybe a couple scoops of canned?
Of the wet, like your the classic line where it's not a dinner, but you can add it, you know, to be added to the food.
Yeah,
would that be increasing it?
Well, they're both balanced products, so they're in the right proportion. So, I mean, the only thing that you would have to worry about is, you know, too many calories and overfeeding the pet. I mean, if you're just putting it in for palatability, or maybe the animal needs to gain a little bit of weight, you're totally fine because everything's balanced in the right proportions. So it's not like you're adding just a dose of selenium on top of that where it could put everything out of balance.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And I do that too, actually. I've found that I have to feed my cat both wet food and canned food to get her to eat because she's a little thin. So I think it's a good way to get animals that are maybe a little underweight or not feeling great to eat, but not have to feed all the wet food.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's continue.
Awesome. All right, well, we will move on to Actogen, which is, again, another prebiotic. And this is you will see on the ingredient deck as hydrolyzed yeast. So it's a prebiotic from a yeast cell wall. So there are other prebiotics out there, but this is specifically from a yeast cell wall. And what prebiotics do is they're food for the beneficial bacteria. So those lactobacillus, the enterococcus, they actually consume the prebiotics and then can do their job and proliferate. But the Actogen goes really one step further than our traditional prebiotic. It is a food source for the good bacteria, but it also binds the pathogenic bacteria in the gut. So those pathogenic bacteria that animals are just picking up from normal everyday life, they're going to bind those, take those out of the animal, the back end. So this is really just helping diversify that microbiome. Again, building that biome, supporting immunity and better nutrient utilization by keeping that digestive tract healthy. So this is actually a little schematic of Actogen in action. So at the bottom of the screen, the cell, that's the small intestine. So that's where nutrients are being absorbed. That's what we want to keep healthy. That's our little finger-like villi projections where all the nutrients are coming in and need to be absorbed. So on the left, our little bacterium, if the animal is out playing outside, its ball is just filthy, it gets a little dose of E. coli, that E. coli could come in, bind to the small intestine, bind to that villi, proliferate, and maybe cause a digestive upset, maybe not cause anything, but we don't want that bad bacteria in there. When we feed Actogen, it comes in and acts like a little decoy. So that pathogenic bacteria, that E. coli, the salmonella, that's actually going to bind to the Actogen and then goes out the backside of the animal. So it doesn't proliferate, it does not cause sickness in the animal. It just is a little Velcro, takes it out of there, out the back end, bacteria dies in the environment. And really all that's doing is supporting that microbiome, feeding those good bacteria, getting rid of the bad bacteria. And again, healthy microbiome is a happy microbiome and happy animals. And here's our products with the Actogen in it. And again, it's labeled as hydrolyzed yeast.
Yeah, inactive yeast, but doesn't do.
Oh, good point. That's earlier in the presentation, we were talking about Evanger and that some of those ingredients you'll see later broken out separately. This is one of those ingredients. Of course, the ratios, like Cami mentioned, will be different depending on the ingredient technology we're using, but the hydrolyzed yeast is something that we discussed as part of the Evanger earlier.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we can move on to deodorace, which is our Yucca shigera extract. And this is a plant extract that you will find in a lot of your foods. And its goal, what it does, is it reduces ammonia emissions. So I think that is important to everyone. Like I mentioned, I have 2 big dogs and their emissions can be not so fun some of the times. But dogs, useful for dogs and also useful for the litter box with a cat. So this is a plant extract and it just binds the ammonia in the gut. It binds the ammonia so the microbiome bacteria can degrade that so we don't get that ammonia smell and the stinky emissions coming out. So like I said, this is a plant and this is grown on Alltech Cerdan, Mexico farm. So it's our entire system. We have a sustainable replanting program and it's also community support. This is unfortunately a pretty poor part of the world. Alltech has an enzyme facility in Cerdan, and then our farm, our yucca farm, surrounds the facility where we employ the local people. We also support an orphanage. We support a school that's there. So it's a great way to support the community. We know that you're going to use these products anyways, but it's a great story of sustainability. And by feeding this, by using this, by helping your dogs be less stinky, you are in a small way supporting this community that really does need the support. So it's a pretty cool product, and I think everyone agrees that less emissions from our dogs and our litter boxes are certainly going to be beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add on to that. I think we're all happy.
Definitely important for cat food too, where the litter box stays in the it's in the house.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's just binding the ammonia, so I mean, it's not causing any harm or anything like that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and then there are bacteria in the microbiome that can actually use that and break that down. So there is somewhat of a prebiotic effect for it as well. So it's a pretty elegant little system to dog odor or litter box odor.
Yeah, litter box owners. So again, I just want to bring special attention to the high bio because we do know that it's in all of the dry foods, but the high bio is a newer semi-moist, dehydrated kind of hybrid between dry food and canned food, and a raw diet alternative. At least that's what we refer to it as, a raw diet alternative. We do have a question from Ashley Jackson about putting this out into a consolidated piece of literature. Yes, Ashley, we will get that to you. Actually, at the end of this presentation, we will send out, Karen and Alltech put together some overviews. So we'll send that out to everybody, as well as a recording of today's webinar so that you can share it with any team members that were not able to make it today. Oh, hi, Brian. Are there any questions? I think that's the last slide. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have one for Kami, if I may.
Yep.
Kami, all the ingredients that you have mentioned, are they EU approved?
They are, yes. I will actually, let me take a step back. Not all the probiotics are EU allowed. There is a specific probiotic that we do need to use for the EU. But that is available if you have an EU formula that we need to work through that. But everything else is, the EU just has some strange regulations on probiotics.
There was the prebiotics or the probiotics?
The probiotics.
Okay.
Yeast is even.
Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, one more. You mentioned the organic and what word did you use for this? When you come to the, let's take copper, organic copper, and what's the other word they used?
That proteinate?
Yeah, that's the organic part.
Right. Yep.
Proteinated, and then you have the
Yes.
sulfate and oxide and so forth, correct?
Yeah, so those would be inorganics, the sulfates,
Inorganic,
the
that's
oxides.
the word I was looking for.
Yep.
Now, if I look at things strictly from a logical point of view, if you have something more of a natural than a less natural thing, there's a cost factor involved, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to what the exact price differences are,
No,
but I think there are some.
That's not, that would be asking too much of you, but I basically to assume that you have an organic, that would stand to be more expensive.
Sure, yeah. I
An
mean,
ingredient?
yeah, probably a little bit more, just the safety standards.
You said the key
process.
word, a little bit. I was after that. Is it substantially? Is it little? And the reason why I'm asking is because there's got to be a reason when you see on labels that they're using both.
Mhm.
Use the word copper,
Yeah.
for instance. Okay.
Yes, it's
Why would that
typically
be?
It's cheaper. I mean, that's
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to have confirmed. Thank you.
Yeah.
I order them, so I can tell you proteinates are definitely more expensive than
Okay.
the alternative, but for good reason, obviously. Also, what was the other?
Yeah, I think, Brian, to answer your question, yeah, if you're looking at a blend, they're probably trying to reduce the higher cost. But, say that they're using the better ingredient, but they're also supplementing that with the inorganic ingredients.
Yeah, and also I know, I guess going back to the yeasts, those yeasts, because they're inactive yeasts, are actually allowed to be in kosher for Passover pet food, which is what we have as well. So.
Because you mentioned that, totally unrelated, we are hosting a Passover Seder for pets, non-denominational. The objective is really to just bring us all together, all pet-loving people, for a fun online event that will be at the end of this month. We'll also be sending information out. But if you're a retailer and you're on, that's also an opportunity to put up signage or encourage the transition now to kosher for Passover pet foods to anyone who
Since it's
observes.
coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up at the end of March, but start the transition earlier rather than day of.
Very cool.
On my part, thank you, Kami.
You're welcome, Brian. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to visit with everyone. I appreciate it.
Is it too late to ask if you could talk about brewer's dried yeast? There are so many poor quality brewer's dried yeast on the market, and I have customers who say, oh, my dog or cat is allergic to brewer's dried yeast and it's a bad ingredient. Well, there are poor quality versions of it on the market. And yes, they do cause digestive disorders and allergies and all kinds of things. So could you explain what yours does and how it is different?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the last one I had is our brewer's dried yeast. We actually have a brewing part of our business. So we do use some of that. We do buy up yeast from the open market market. But again, it goes through our quality control system that's testing for all those heavy metals. We're standardizing it because brewer's yeast is a great source of nutrition for a pet. Antioxidants, B vitamins, minerals, and a great palatability enhancer. So it's more of a factor of know your supplier, know your brand, that they are requiring these tests, because it is a good ingredient, and ours goes through a lot of quality standards.
Amy, I got to bother you one more time.
Sure.
All right. Would you be able to tell me the difference between chelated and sequestered vitamins, minerals?
You know, I would probably need to go back to our mineral team on the sequester.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm familiar with the term, but I don't know how to explain it to you. So I can absolutely.
I believe it has something to do with the binding, but I'm not sure either. That's why I asked.
Yeah, it could be that it's bound to one specific thing, or the absorption is different, but I can get back to you on that.
Would be appreciated.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
I say Alltech being a fermentation company where they also have their own beer manufacturing, makes their own brewer's dried yeast.
Ah, cool.
Yes.
As Brian
Yeah.
might know now.
That's the fun part of my job. We get to have an Alltech beer at the end of the day.
Just say where.
Cami, can you go, I don't know if there's another slide that shows the products that do include brewer's dried yeast. Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
So this is predominantly cat foods. It does help with the palatability of the cat food as well. So you'll see it in all of our complete and balanced canned cat foods, our dry cat food, and the puppy and underweight can, and of course the vegetarian dinner, plant-based for dogs and cats.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another one of
all I
those. Go ahead.
So people go into a store and they have all these options, and they have these unassuming Evangers and against the grain cans sitting on the shelf and bags of food. And I think that, you know, without this kind of information, they won't know what kind of nutritional value and what kind of ingredient safety is built into Evanger's products. So thank you so much for this great presentation. I think it's just a great help. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And Brett and Chelsea and Karen, I can also send you an overview of our safety program. If anyone has specific questions, wants to know what that all entails, we're happy to share that. Anything safety related.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you.
Yes, so there you can continue asking questions in the chat. Jackie just asked if she can have a copy of the presentation. Yes, Jackie, Karen has put together, our certified nutritional consultant, sort of an overview of all the ingredients with bullet points. So we'll be sending that to everybody if you RSVP'd. If you did not RSVP and you're on today, then reach out to your Evanger sales rep and they'll get it out to you. You are welcome. Okay, if there are any other questions, speak now or email us. Otherwise, also, I would love to thank you, Cami and Martina. I'm not sure if you're on, but if you are, thank you for your support. Cami, thanks again for giving us your time to present this to us and our partners today. We really appreciate it.
Well
thanks
done,
for the
Cami.
opportunity. Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Well done.
And I do want to say thanks again for all of you. I know your time is so limited. Thank you again for taking the time to join this webinar and join us and being a partner and having us be a partner with you as well.
Cool. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.